When did students have to protect each other because teachers wouldn't? The bruises on Alexis's arms appeared on a Thursday in October. I noticed them during chemistry lab when she reached across the table for a beaker, and her sleeve rode up. 5 distinct finger marks wrapped around her forearm in purple and yellow. She caught me staring and yanked her sleeve down, her face going pale. "Don't," she whispered. "Please, Damon, just don't." But I'd seen enough bruises on my mom after my stepdad's bad nights to recognize grip marks. Someone had grabbed Alexis hard enough to leave evidence that would last weeks. I watched her throughout class, noting how she flinched when Mr. Graves walked past her desk to check our work, how she kept her eyes down and her body angled away from him, how her hands shook when she wrote notes. Mr. Graves was everyone's favorite teacher, 38 years old, chemistry PhD, coach of the robotics team that won state 3 years running. Parents loved him because he pushed students to excel. Administrators loved him because his test scores were the highest in the district. Students loved him because he actually made science interesting instead of just lecturing from textbooks. He stayed late helping kids with college applications. He bought pizza for study sessions. He wrote recommendation letters that got students into MIT and Stanford. Everyone trusted him, which was exactly the problem. After class, I waited by Alexis's locker. She saw me standing there and her face crumpled. "Please don't make me talk about it." Her voice was barely audible above the hallway noise. "I saw the bruises, Lex. On your arms. That's not nothing." She glanced around like checking for surveillance, then grabbed my wrist and pulled me into the empty band room. The door clicked shut behind us, and she leaned against it, breathing hard. "If I tell you, you can't tell anyone. Promise me, Damon. My dad will lose his mind if this gets out. We can't afford any trouble right now. Tell me what happened." Alexis's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Graves has been asking me to stay after school. Says he's helping me prepare for the state science fair. But last week, he started touching my shoulders during tutoring, rubbing them, saying I was tense and needed to relax. Then yesterday I tried to leave early and he grabbed my arm, hard, told me I was being disrespectful after all the time he'd invested in me, that I owed him better than that. My blood went cold. We need to report this. Now. Go to Principal Holloway." "I already did." Her voice broke. "This morning, I went straight to his office and told him everything. He listened, took notes, seemed really concerned. Then he called Mr. Graves in to get his side of the story." "What? With you sitting right there?" "No, he made me wait outside. I could hear them through the door, though. Graves was so calm, so reasonable. Said I'd been struggling emotionally lately, that he'd noticed signs of self-harm and was trying to counsel me through a difficult time. That sometimes troubled girls misinterpret adult concern as something inappropriate. Holloway bought every word. I wanted to punch something. That's complete bullshit. You're not self-harming. You're not troubled. He's lying. I know that. You know that. But Holloway believes Graves because Graves is a decorated teacher with 18 years of spotless service. I'm just a junior with mediocre grades whose dad is barely scraping by. Who's going to believe me?" She wiped her eyes roughly. "Holloway told me he'd look into it, but also said I should be careful about making accusations that could destroy someone's career. That if I was mistaken or exaggerating, there could be serious consequences for making false reports. He made it sound like I was the problem. I'd never felt rage like this before. Pure, white-hot fury at adults who were supposed to protect students, instead protecting each other. Okay, if Holloway won't help, we'll handle this ourselves. But first, we need to know if Graves has done this to other girls." Alexis nodded slowly. "There's a group. Of us. We figured it out last month when we were all at robotics practice. Started comparing notes. 5 girls total that we know of. He targets us differently depending on what he thinks will work. Some get the touchy-feely caring mentor approach. Others get intimidated and controlled. But it's all the same goal. Who else?" She pulled out her phone and showed me a group chat. 5 names. Alexis, Keisha Williams, Jasmine Rao, Brittany Schaffer, Nina Volkov, all juniors and seniors. All in Graves's advanced classes or on his robotics team. The chat history made me sick. Messages about Graves's behavior going back months. How he'd corner them alone, touch them inappropriately under the guise of teaching, make comments about their bodies disguised as concern about their health, pressure them to spend time with him outside school hours. They'd been trying to protect each other, warning about his patterns, developing strategies to avoid being alone with him. "Why didn't you all go to administration together?" I asked. "We talked about it. But Keisha's parents are immigrants and she's terrified of causing problems that might affect their status. Jasmine's family is super conservative and she thinks they'd blame her for being immodest. Brittany tried reporting him last year and got accused of seeking attention. Nina's mom works in the district office and keeps telling her Graves is wonderful. We're trapped. Not anymore, I thought. I spent that night researching, found articles about predatory teachers, learned about grooming patterns and institutional protection, discovered that most school districts prioritize reputation over student safety, that teachers with good records get benefit of the doubt while student accusations are dismissed, that it usually takes multiple formal complaints, documented evidence, and sometimes even criminal charges, before action gets taken. The system was designed to protect adults, not kids. The next morning, I pulled together a group. My best friend Lucas, his girlfriend Aisha, 2 guys from the soccer team, Marcus and Terrell. Wait, Marcus is forbidden. 2 guys from the soccer team, Isaiah and Terrell. My lab partner Zoe. We met in the library during lunch. I explained the situation with Graves, showed them the group chat with permission from Alexis, watched their expressions shift from disbelief to horror to anger. We're starting a protection network, I said. Girls don't walk anywhere alone if Graves is around. We volunteer to help with projects so nobody has to stay after school with him one-on-one. We document everything, and we find other students he might have targeted who haven't come forward yet. Zoe was already taking notes. We need a system, a group chat where girls can request backup, a schedule of who's available when, code words in case someone needs help but can't speak freely. This is insane, Lucas said. We're talking about a teacher, someone administration trusts. If we're wrong, we're destroying someone's life. And if we're right and do nothing, he keeps hurting students. Aisha shot back. I'm in. We built the network carefully. Started with the 5 girls in the original group, then quietly reached out to others. Word spread through whisper networks that existed precisely because girls had learned they couldn't trust official channels. By the end of the week, we had 12 girls connected to our protection system. Girls who'd experienced Graves's inappropriate behavior but never reported it because they'd seen how the system responded to accusations. We created a shared calendar tracking Graves's schedule, which periods he taught, when he had hall duty, when robotics practice happened, when he stayed late. We assigned escorts for any girl who needed to interact with him. 2 students minimum, preferably male, always visible. Graves couldn't isolate anyone with witnesses constantly present, he noticed. Started making comments about students being unusually clingy, about kids not having enough independence. He tried requiring one-on-one meetings for advanced students, but we countered by having multiple students request meetings at the same time. He'd get frustrated when Alexis showed up with Keisha and me, when Nina arrived with Isaiah and Zoe, but he couldn't refuse without raising suspicions. We started documenting everything. Zoe created a shared document where girls recorded every incident. Date, time, location, witnesses, exact words Graves used. We took photos of bruises, saved text messages, recorded conversations where legally possible, built a case that couldn't be dismissed as he said, she said. 2 weeks into our protection network, Graves cornered me after class. Damon, can we talk? I'm concerned about some changes I've noticed. He closed the classroom door, which immediately made me uncomfortable. I propped it, back open with my backpack. What changes, Mr. Graves? His smile didn't reach his eyes. You've become very protective of certain female students, following them around, inserting yourself into situations that don't concern you. It's not appropriate behavior. Some might even call it stalking. I'm just being a good friend, helping classmates with their work. Are you, though? Because from my perspective, you're interfering with my ability to mentor students effectively, creating an atmosphere of suspicion where there shouldn't be any. That's concerning, Damon. Very concerning. The implied threat was clear. Back off or face consequences. I'm not doing anything wrong, Mr. Graves. Just making sure my friends aren't alone when they don't want to be. That's not stalking. That's being supportive. His jaw tightened. I've spoken with Principal Holloway about this. He's aware of your behavior. If it continues, there may be disciplinary action. You understand? I understood perfectly. The system was circling wagons. Instead of investigating Graves, they were threatening students who questioned him. That afternoon, I got called to Holloway's office. He sat behind his desk looking stern and disappointed. Damon, Mr. Graves has expressed concerns about your conduct. He says you've been harassing female students, following them around, making them uncomfortable with unwanted attention. My hands clenched into fists. That's not true. Ask any of them. They requested help. I'm providing it. Mr. Graves is a respected educator with nearly 2 decades of experience. When he expresses concern about student behavior, I take it seriously. This fixation you've developed is unhealthy. I'm recommending you speak with the school counselor about appropriate boundaries. What about the inappropriate boundaries Mr. Graves has been crossing? Multiple girls have complained about him touching them without consent, about him isolating them, about him being controlling and manipulative. But instead of investigating him, you're threatening the students trying to stay safe. Holloway's expression hardened. That's a very serious accusation, one that could constitute slander if it's unfounded. Mr. Graves has been cleared of any wrongdoing. The previous complaint was investigated and dismissed. If you continue spreading these rumors, you'll face suspension. I left his office shaking with rage and frustration. They weren't just protecting Graves, they were actively punishing students who challenged him. The protection network expanded after word spread about my meeting with Holloway. More students came forward, not just girls Graves had targeted, but anyone who'd witnessed something off. A freshman who'd seen Graves pull a girl into his classroom and lock the door. A sophomore who'd heard him make sexual comments about students' bodies. A senior who'd caught him taking photos of girls during robotics practice without their knowledge. We had dozens of documented incidents. Testimony from 20 students. Physical evidence of bruising. Text messages where Graves used manipulative language. But administration wouldn't listen, because listening meant admitting they'd failed to protect students, meant admitting their star teacher was a predator, meant potential lawsuits and bad publicity and shattered reputations. Lucas suggested going to the media. If we can't get the school to act, maybe public pressure will force their hand. Zoe shook her head. Too risky. Graves will sue for defamation. And if the story goes public without charges filed, it could backfire. Make him look like a victim of false accusations. Then what's the plan? Isaiah asked. Keep escorting girls forever? That's not sustainable. and it doesn't stop him from trying. I'd been thinking about this. We need irrefutable proof. Something so clear even Holloway can't ignore it. We need to catch Graves in the act. Alexis pulled me aside after the meeting. What you're suggesting is dangerous. If Graves figures out you're setting him up, he'll destroy you. He has connections, resources, administration backing him. I know, but someone has to stop him. If none of the adults will, it falls to us. She was quiet for a long moment. Okay, I'll be bait. If we're doing this, let's do it right. We spent 3 days planning. Alexis would request an after-school tutoring session with Graves. She'd wear a button camera hidden in her jacket. I'd be in the adjacent storage room with my phone ready to call 911 and live stream backup footage to our private server. Isaiah and Terrell would be stationed outside the building as lookouts. Zoe would monitor the school's security camera feeds from the computer lab. Everything had to be timed perfectly. If we messed up, Graves would know what we'd tried, and we'd lose any chance of stopping him. The meeting was scheduled for a Thursday. The irony wasn't lost on me. Alexis arrived at Graves's classroom at 4 p.m. with her camera activated. I was in the storage room by 3:45, heart hammering so hard I thought it might explode. Through the thin wall, I could hear their conversation. Thank you for staying, Alexis. I know things have been tense between us lately. Graves's voice was smooth, practiced. Your project has real potential, but you need focused guidance. One-on-one attention. No distractions. Where should we start? Alexis sounded nervous, which wasn't acting. Let's look at your research notes. Come sit next to me so we can review them together. I heard chairs moving. My hands were sweating. You're tense again, Graves said. Here, let me help with that. I'm okay, Mr. Graves. Maybe we should just focus on the science. Relax, Alexis. You know I care about you. Want what's best for you. Why are you pulling away? After everything I've done for you? I appreciate your help, but I'm uncomfortable with the touching. Please stop. Uncomfortable? That's hurtful, Alexis. I'm trying to help you, trying to make you understand how special you are. Do you know how many teachers would invest this much time in a student like you? A student like me? You know what I mean. A student with your background, your challenges. I see your potential when others don't, but you need to show appreciation. Need to understand that mentorship is a two-way relationship. The manipulation in his voice made me sick. He was setting her up, making it seem like she owed him something for his attention. I think I should go. Alexis's voice was firmer now. We're not finished. Sit down. Mr. Graves, I said sit down. Sound of struggle. Chair scraping. Alexis's sharp intake of breath. You're hurting me. Let go. You don't get to walk away when I'm trying to help you. Do you understand how lucky you are? How many girls would kill for this opportunity? I was already calling 911 while pulling up the live stream. The dispatcher answered, and I whispered the emergency, giving the address and classroom number. Then I burst through the storage room door. Graves had Alexis pinned against his desk, one hand gripping her arm, the other on her waist. She was trying to push him away, face contorted with fear. He spun around when I entered, immediately releasing her and stepping back. His expression cycled through shock, rage, and then calculation. Damon, this isn't what it looks like. I know exactly what it looks like, and so will everyone else. I held up my phone, showing the recording. Live streamed to a secure server, along with Alexis's camera footage. We have everything. His face went white, then red. You have no idea what you've done. That's illegal recording. Invasion of privacy. You've just destroyed your future for a misunderstanding. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. Alexis consented to being recorded. An assault isn't a misunderstanding. Sirens wailed in the distance. Graves lunged for my phone, but Isaiah and Terrell burst through the door. Both were on the soccer team. Both were bigger than Graves. He froze. You set me up. This is entrapment. No, Alexis said, her voice shaking but clear. This is documentation of what you've been doing to me and other girls for months, years. We have testimony from 23 students. We have bruises, messages, witnesses. We have everything. Police arrived 4 minutes later. 2 officers, 1 male, 1 female. The female officer, Sergeant Rivera, took Alexis aside immediately, while the male officer, Officer Tomlinson, dealt with Graves. I'm a teacher, Graves insisted. This is a misunderstanding. These students have been harassing me for weeks, making wild accusations. This is clearly retaliation. Tomlinson looked at me. You have evidence? I showed him the live stream, played the audio. Graves's voice saying, sit down and you don't get to walk away and you're hurting me from Alexis. Showed him the button camera footage from her jacket. Graves's hands on her trying to get away. The officer's expression hardened. Mr. Graves, I need you to come with me to the station. We have questions. I'm not going anywhere without a lawyer. This is harassment. Those recordings are inadmissible. We'll let the DA decide that. Right now, you're being detained for questioning regarding assault on a minor. They put Graves in handcuffs. He was screaming about his rights, about false accusations, about how this would ruin him, about how we'd pay for this. Principal Holloway arrived just as they were loading Graves into the patrol car. His face was ashen. What's happening here, officer? There must be some mistake. Rivera turned to him with barely concealed contempt. The mistake was made by your administration when multiple students reported inappropriate conduct and you dismissed their complaints. We have documented evidence of assault. The district attorney will be very interested in how your school handled prior reports. Holloway looked at me, and I saw the moment he realized how badly he'd failed. Damon, I didn't know. The reports weren't substantiated. You didn't want to know. You chose to protect a teacher over students because it was easier. Because Graves made you look good with his test scores and awards. Now we all have to live with the consequences of your choice. The news spread through school by the next morning. Students were shocked, then angry, then organized. More victims came forward now that Graves was in custody. Not just current students, but alumni from years past. Women in their 20s who'd been targeted when they were teenagers, who'd kept quiet because nobody would believe them over the beloved Mr. Graves. The district attorney, a woman named Samantha Yo, took the case personally. She'd been a victim of teacher abuse herself in high school, had spent her career trying to protect kids who fell through the cracks. She met with every victim, documented every incident, built a case that was unshakable. Graves was charged with 12 counts of assault on a minor, 5 counts of sexual harassment, and 3 counts of intimidation of a witness. His bail was set at $500,000. His wife filed for divorce within a week. His lawyer tried arguing that the recordings were inadmissible, but Massachusetts law was clear. One-party consent for recordings. Alexis had consented to her own recording. The footage was legal and devastating. The school board held an emergency meeting. Parents packed the auditorium, demanding answers. How had this gone on for years? How many students had reported Graves only to be dismissed? Why had administration chosen to protect him over investigating thoroughly? Board members stammered through non-answers and empty promises to do better. Holloway was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. So was the vice principal who'd dismissed Brittany's complaint the previous year. So was the school counselor who'd told Nina that Graves was just being fatherly. The investigation revealed systemic rot. 3 other teachers had complaints in their files that were never properly investigated. 2 coaches had been credibly accused of inappropriate conduct with students, but retained their positions. The district had a pattern of prioritizing reputation over student safety, of protecting adults who brought prestige while silencing kids who spoke up. Parents formed an advocacy group demanding policy changes, mandatory reporting procedures, independent investigations of abuse complaints, student representation on disciplinary committees, transparency in how complaints were handled. The board fought every reform, claiming they were unnecessary overreach. Then the lawsuits started. 15 families sued the district for failing to protect their children. The legal fees and settlements would eventually cost the district $4.3 million. Insurance didn't cover it because the district had knowingly ignored reports, which voided their liability protection. Taxes would have to increase. Programs would be cut. The consequences of protecting Graves would ripple through the community for years. Graves's trial happened 6 months later. I testified about finding Alexis with bruises, about setting up the protection network, about the meeting in Graves's classroom. Alexis testified about months of grooming and manipulation, about being grabbed and intimidated, about going to administration and being dismissed. 23 other students testified about their experiences. Alumni testified about incidents from years ago. A pattern emerged of decades of predatory behavior that administration had repeatedly ignored or actively covered up. The defense tried painting us as troubled teens with grudges, as attention seekers conspiring to destroy an innocent man. But the recordings were undeniable. Graves' own voice condemning him. You don't get to walk away when I'm trying to help you. You need to show appreciation. Do you know how lucky you are? The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge was scathing. You held a position of trust and authority. Students and parents believed you were safe. Instead, you were a predator using your position to access and abuse vulnerable children. You showed no remorse, only anger at being caught. The community trusted you, and you betrayed that trust in the most egregious way possible. Graves got 15 years in prison. He'd be a registered sex offender for life. His teaching credentials were permanently revoked. His name became synonymous with the failure of systems meant to protect children. But the damage he'd caused would last longer than his sentence. Alexis struggled with anxiety and trust issues, needed therapy to process the trauma of being dismissed by adults who should have believed her. Keisha developed PTSD, jumping at sudden movements and avoiding male teachers entirely. Jasmine's grades dropped because she couldn't focus, her mind constantly replaying what had happened. The EA, psychological impact of abuse, was compounded by institutional betrayal, by the knowledge that when these girls had asked for help, adults had chosen to protect their colleague instead. Holloway was eventually fired, but not criminally charged. His failure to investigate was negligent, not criminal. He found work in another district 2 states away, started fresh where nobody knew his history. The vice principal retired with full pension. The counselor transferred to a different school. They all faced consequences, but nothing compared to the lifelong trauma they'd enabled. The protection network we'd built became permanent, a student safety committee with real authority to report concerns and demand action. We wrote guidelines for appropriate teacher-student conduct, created systems where complaints went directly to external investigators, not school administration, fought for policy changes that would actually protect students instead of protecting the district's reputation. We testified at the state legislature about the need for mandatory reporting laws, for stricter oversight of how schools handle abuse complaints, for criminal penalties when administrators knowingly ignore credible reports. Some of our proposals became law. Others died in committee, killed by school district lobbying groups who claimed they created unnecessary liability. I graduated that spring. Got accepted to college with plans to study education policy. Wanted to fix systems that had failed so many students. Alexis graduated a year later, went into social work, specialized in helping abuse survivors navigate institutions that often re-traumatize them. Zoe became a lawyer focusing on civil rights cases. Isaiah worked with nonprofits advocating for vulnerable youth. We'd all been changed by what happened, by having to become adults when the actual adults had failed us. 5 years later, I was working at an education advocacy organization when I got an email. Subject line, "Thank you," from a girl named Olivia at a school 3 states away. She wrote that her school had implemented our protection protocols after hearing about our case, that when she'd reported her coach for inappropriate conduct, the administration actually investigated, actually believed her, actually removed him from contact with students pending the investigation. He was eventually fired and criminally charged. The system worked because we'd helped change it. "Your story saved me," Olivia wrote. "Because of what you did, I didn't have to spend months being stalked and dismissed. Adults actually listened, actually acted. I wanted you to know that what you went through mattered, that it helped people you'll never meet." I sat at my desk, reading that email, and cried. Not from sadness, but from something like relief. We'd been kids forced to protect each other because teachers wouldn't, forced to build systems that should have already existed, forced to fight battles that adults should have fought for us. We'd been betrayed by institutions designed to keep us safe, but we hadn't stayed silent, hadn't accepted that this was just how things were. We'd documented, organized, fought back, forced change that would protect students we'd never meet. The cost had been high, trauma and anxiety and years of healing ahead of us, but we'd won. Not perfectly, not completely. The system still failed kids every day, but it failed fewer than before, protected more than it had, and every Olivia who wrote to say thank you reminded us why we'd fought. 10 years later, at a conference on school safety, I saw Graves's wife in the audience. She approached me during a break, older now, worn down by years of being married to a predator. "I didn't know," she said. "He hid it from me. When it came out, I didn't want to believe it, but then I started seeing the patterns, things I'd ignored or explained away. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I didn't know what to say. Her apology couldn't undo what had happened, couldn't heal the students Graves had damaged, but maybe it was a start. "Help other people see the patterns," I told her. "Educate parents about warning signs. The work isn't done." She nodded and walked away. The conference continued, filled with educators and policymakers and activists, all working to fix broken systems, to believe students, to hold abusers accountable, to rebuild trust that predators like Graves had shattered. The room was full of people who'd survived institutional betrayal and chose to fight back instead of staying silent. We'd been kids forced to become protectors, investigators, advocates, forced to do jobs that adults had abandoned. We'd carried weight we shouldn't have had to carry, but we'd carried it anyway, and built something better from the wreckage of what had failed us. That's not justice. Not really. Justice would have been Graves never being hired, or being stopped the first time he crossed a line, or administration believing the first girl who reported him. Justice would have been adults protecting children instead of children protecting themselves. But we got accountability, which was something. We got change, which mattered. We got to grow up knowing we'd fought back, which helped us survive. And sometimes, in a broken system, survival and incremental progress are the only victories available. You take them, document them, and keep fighting. Because somewhere, right now, another kid is being failed by adults who choose reputation over safety. Another victim is being dismissed by administrators who prioritize convenience over justice. And they need to know they're not alone. That protection networks exist, that change is possible, that students can force accountability when teachers won't. That's what we learned. That's what we pass on. The fight continues, with every kid who refuses to stay quiet, every adult who chooses to believe them, every system we force to change. The dangerous situations don't stop, but neither do we. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.